Today's video will discuss the Mars Bank and making outside purchases. This video will deal with 3 ideas: how outside purchases will be made, private hard currency accounts held by the bank, and a bit about the banking system in more detail than has been discussed previously. I start off by saying that the Confederation will attempt to always encourage competition for business enterprises. This may not always be easy to do. For example, in the early years at the Earth Embassy, and again on Mars, it may not be feasible to have competition in restaurants, retailers, smelters, and metalworks. If we assume for this video, however, a measure of a mature economy, then we can postulate some competition in banking too. Thus, at some point, there will not be just one Mars bank, but a couple of banks, to ensure that banking clients have options for their money and for the services these banks will provide. This video, then, describes only general practices to be used by the Confederation for its banking goals and is not about only one Mars bank. The first item, the banking system for purchases, will hopefully be fully electronic, done either on an app on a smartphone or with a card from the bank. This will eliminate the need for banknotes, checks, and coins. As I noted before, nearly all purchases in China are done using an app on smartphones. This will include payments from business to business, ticket contract payments by ticket holders, and deposits into retirement accounts. The second item has not really been discussed previously, but will be raised briefly now. If we assume that some individuals coming to the Earth Embassy will have reasonably large financial assets, which the Confederation will ask be deposited at the Mars Bank, it may not be reasonable to think that all persons willing to come to the Earth Embassy will exchange all of their hard currency financial assets for Confederation script, but some will likely exchange all of them, and most will turn over a significant portion of these assets, especially as they come to understand that the Earth Embassy will need hard currency to function effectively. These accounts, denominated in Confederation script, can be invested in ways chosen by the individuals exchanging the funds. There will be many investment choices offered by financial institutions at the Earth Embassy. At any time, the funds held in these special accounts can be withdrawn, for example, if that person needs funds to start a business at the Earth Embassy. Alternatively, these funds can be exchanged back into some hard currency if that person decides to leave the Earth Embassy and re-establish a life outside of the mission to Mars. The second item in today's video is how the Mars Bank will pay for purchases outside, 4 items from outside of the Earth Embassy. That process proceeds as follows. First, an individual or a business will submit a requisition to some fleet office to buy something from the outside, along with an explanation of why this purchase is requested. That fleet office will categorize this requisition and prioritize the request, with all other requests being made. Financial officers further up the fleet or Confederation chain will have authorized the expenditure of hard currency funds for the week or for the month. The Fleet Purchasing Office will then tell the Mars Bank that it may make the requisitions for the highest priority items and then pay the invoice for that purchase when it comes due. Two points now about how the Mars Bank might hold its hard currency funds. First, if the Mars Bank is staffed with capable money managers, they may want to earn a return on the hard currency they are managing. One way to do this might be to hold 1/4 of the hard currency as cash in an account that earns a small return. These funds would be fully liquid. Another quarter might be held as certificates of deposit, which earn slightly more interest but would generally not be available until maturity. Another quarter might be invested in securities that can be sold at any time, both to reap profits and to replenish other accounts in this setup. These funds might gain or lose money, but if the securities are chosen wisely, should offer gains in excess of interest-bearing investments. Finally, 1/4 of these funds might be held in securities that offer exceptional prospects for long-term growth and return. The purpose of these funds will be not only to increase the value of hard currency accounts at the Mars Bank, but also to serve as collateral for loans made by the Confederation from outside sources for additional hard currency. The second point is somewhat obvious, if you think about it for a moment. That point is that the Mars Bank will hold its hard currency funds outside of the Earth Embassy. After all, the Earth Embassy will operate using Confederation script, The Confederation script is not going to be honored by outside financial institutions until Mars is reached and settlement there begins. In addition, no Mars Bank hard currency can generate interest or a return inside the Earth Embassy. The hard currency funds will need to be placed in trustworthy financial institutions outside of the Earth Embassy, both to facilitate payments on invoices and to generate interest and appreciation earnings on that hard currency. I will now explain a little about how banks generally work in the West. What I'm about to tell you probably differs from the impression most people have, which is as follows. Most people think a bank takes in money as a deposit and then loans that same money out. In both cases, the bank charges interest on the loans it makes and pays out interest to account holders. Its expenses are paid and profits made come from the difference in that interest. This is kind of how the operations of the savings and loan in the movie It's a Wonderful Life was explained. However, it is not at all how a federally chartered bank in the US works. Though I used to think the description from It's a Wonderful Life was how banks worked, I could never understand how such a bank could pay its employees, its other expenses, and make a profit. If the only money a bank could loan out was depositor money that was earning 2% interest and the bank was earning 4% lending depositor money out, you would only make 2% interest on those loans. If there were $1 million deposited, you would only make $20,000 in interest, barely enough to pay a part-time teller. The way banks really work, briefly, is as follows. Yes, banks take in money from depositors and they make loans to others. However, the loans have little to do with the amount of money depositors have in their accounts. Rather, when a loan is made, a bank creates money out of thin air by crediting the bank account of the one borrowing the money with the amount of the loan. This loan thus increases the money supply in the economy, which will affect the amount of inflation in that economy. The cash that the bank has taken in from depositors is a kind of financial grease that allows the bank to operate day to day, paying its expenses and returning funds to depositors on demand. Now, reconsider that bank from above. It still has the $1 million in deposits, pays 2% interest on those accounts, and earns 4% interest on the loans. However, given how banks in the West really work, suppose that bank is able to loan out 10 million instead of the 1 million. The bank's return then is as follows. The same $20,000 return on the first million as before, but $360,000 on the other $9 million lent out. The $380,000 made on only $1 million in deposit funds can pay for all the bank's expenses and the profit it needs to make to stay in business. I have detailed the way banks work in modern Western economies for a reason important to the smooth development of the economy at the Earth Embassy. The creation of money out of thin air, which happens when banks make loans, may affect the amount of inflation that occurs in an economy. I will end this video elaborating on why this is so. As I explain in my deep dive videos on inflation, the amount of money in circulation in an economy is perhaps the most important component determining the inflation rate. That inflation rate must be kept under control at the Earth Embassy for a number of reasons. If you want more detail about these reasons, consult my deep dive videos on inflation. For this video, consider first a situation where the Mars Bank makes lots of loans. The resulting increase in money supply at the Earth Embassy may force the Confederation to slow the number of contracts it lets for the products and services it needs to get people and the economy to Mars. Otherwise, Confederation script might experience too much inflation both at the Earth Embassy and in exchange rates for hard currencies. On the other hand, if the creation of funds by banks at the Earth Embassy slows, then the Confederation might consider stimulating the economy by speeding up the number or the size of the contracts it lets to individuals and businesses at the Earth Embassy. While these Mars Bank issues may have seemed a far out in left field topic given most techies' thoughts about Mars, the need to solve the financial wherewithal problem requires efficient and creative ways to stimulate the growth of the mostly self-sufficient economy needed at the Earth Embassy. The Mars Bank is absolutely vital to that role, since these banking and financial techniques are well-proven methods to grow an economy. It may still sound funny to many ears, but if you want to get to Mars, you need to have a Mars Bank in order to stimulate the Earth Embassy's economy.